How's it hanging, Phil?
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Blood Splatter Chatter Live. Excited to be here with the panel tonight, talking about a couple of slasher classics, Child's Play 2 and 3. That's not what I tried to play, but close enough. What's going on, guys? What's going on?
Station, what is up?
I was sitting there backstage telling you guys, like, I want to do this. You're like, all right, yeah, let's do that. It didn't work. It didn't work. Let's try this though. That's what I was going for. That's what I was going for. What's going on, man? We got Phable in the house. We got Lynk had to pop out for a moment, but I'm sure he's going to be back in just a few seconds. So excited to be here, man. Doing a little Child Play 2 and 3 double feature. We did, I think it was about a month and a half ago now. Robbie and Perry came on the channel and we talked about Child's Play 1. And part of the reason why I'm squeezing all these in is because Bride of Chucky's releasing on 4K. And I wanted to do that for Horror Fest. So I didn't want to do it out of order. I kind of wanted to just like squeeze all these in, which is actually kind of fun. I think this is the way in the future I'll try to do franchises, kind of like squeeze a chunk of them in together so we can compare and contrast them all together, keep them fresh in our minds. But what's up with you, my friend? Are you a Child's Play fan? I know Chucky didn't make your top 10 list for horror icons, but I think I remember you saying you're a fan of Chucky, but he's just not a top 10 guy for you, right?
Right, yeah. No, I love the original Child's Play. I found that movie to be quite scary when I was a kid.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. The sequels, you know, I enjoy them to varying degrees, but the original is still, it hasn't been topped for me as far as the franchise is concerned.
Nice. I feel pretty differently. I think that for me personally, I think this is one of the few franchises, and I don't hear this brought up a lot when people talk about sequels that are better than the original. But for me, and I won't spoil which ones they are because maybe one of them was on this list. I think there's at least two in the franchise that I like better than the original. But it's one of the cool things about the franchise is it has, I think, a level of consistency that a lot of them don't have, and factually, it has continuity with people behind the scenes that like no other franchise has. We've had the same producer, and then producer David Kirshner and writer in Don Mancini. He's at least been a part of, I think, every single one of them outside of the remake. I'm pretty damn sure as far as he goes. But Link, can you hear me? He cannot. All right, we'll bring Link back in. I'm sure he'll be back in a moment. But okay, so as we said, we're going to be talking about 2 and 3 tonight. So the first one, we'll go over through the stats on that right quick. Directed by John LaFia, who it's kind of this is part of what I think also sets this franchise apart. There's like this family within the creative team. Like John LaFia got brought in to do rewrites on Child's Play 1, and he's actually the guy that really beefed up like Chucky as a character and the Charles Lee Ray aspect of Chucky. So when they went to do a sequel, LaFia had done very little. But he was just a dude that David Kirshner, the producer, was like super comfortable with. Don Mancini liked him a lot. So they just rolled with this guy. And I love seeing in the special features, David Kirshner, who's produced a ton of shit since then. He said like there's no way he would do that now. Like knowing what he knows, but he's so glad like he was ignorant enough back then to just be like, whatever, I'm gonna put this guy I feel comfortable with. Not a guy that has like all the box office stats and all that. So
right.
I think we got Link here. Are you good, my friend?
I know I'm a little choppy. I can hear you. Okay. All right. Yeah. I can hear you guys.
Hell yeah, bro.
My audio, I was still learning, trying to figure out how to internet. My bad.
That's all good, dude. Are you I'll ask you the same thing as Phable. I know less about you because I've never heard you mention Chuck. We've never conversed about Chucky at all. Where does your fandom lie, like for the character and the franchise?
I'm familiar with Chucky. I don't dislike Chucky. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan, but I definitely grew up with Chucky. You know, I probably the only one I'd probably seen like as it was somewhat recent when it came out was like Bride of Chucky when I was like 10 or 11. But I remember growing up watching 2 and 3. I didn't. It's crazy sometimes when you rewatch old movies that you don't think you've seen or haven't seen in a minute. I was like, oh my god, I remember this scene.
Right.
And I grew up with Chucky 2 and 3 a lot. I didn't watch the first one, until I was like in high school, but I did watch 2 and 3 growing up. Interestingly enough, so
Right.
I'm aware of Chucky. I'm the biggest fan, but I respect him.
Right. I feel like I think it's the same for me, where I had seen Child's Play 2 before 1, because I'm born in 1983. I was thinking about this earlier. So like for me, the big slashers, like the first memories that I have of slashers was Child's Play 2, Freddy's Dead, and Nightmare or Jason Takes Manhattan, which at least for the latter two, those are like people's least favorites in those franchise. But those are the three like slasher movies that right when I was like 6, 7 years old that I was obsessing over back in the day.
Now I feel like an old fart over here. I saw all three of these in the movies, man.
Did you really? Well, you're only like a year older than me, I think, maybe 2 years older.
No,
I think,
man, 1980, man. I'm 3 years older than you.
damn, you're older than my older brother. You are age. What up to everybody in the chat, by the way? Eric, Sal, Two Gun, Rogue, all you guys are awesome. Appreciate you guys popping in. So yeah, a little bit more on Child's Play 2. Again, this one came out in 1990, so this was actually exactly 2 years after the release of Child's Play 1, and then 3 that we'll get into. That was the one that was kind of forced out and came out less than a year after 2. So Child's Play 2 had a budget of $13 million, had a really good return of $35 million, a Rotten Tomatoes score, a measly Rotten Tomatoes score of 40%. I'm not shocked by that. IMDb of 5.9. I'm not shocked by that either. But a Google user rating of 76%. I'm fucking stunned by that, because I feel like this is the one for people my age. I know Phable, you don't fall into that camp. This is the one that's like the favorite of a lot of kids, and I think it's because this is the one, in my opinion, that is directed most at kids, and it's the best story that's going to suck kids in. Like Andy's the main character. The first one is going back to the mom. They don't really decide on that. And it's just for me, and it's colorful. It's the most fun of them. Chucky's a little bit more fun. But let's just dive into it, dude. Normally we run through the plots on these things and we save your overall thoughts until the end, but I kind of want to do the opposite on this one. And let's just dive in with both of these. And Phable, I'll go ahead and start with you, man. First of all, when was the last time you saw Child's Play 2? And what are your memories of it? And then what was this experience like? You know what I mean? Like, what was your old opinion? And then after a rewatch, where do you stand on it now?
It's been some time. I mean, at least a decade, I would have to say, since I've seen Child's Play 2. And then probably since the movie theater, since that watch. So I might have seen this movie 2 or 3 times in my whole life. But yeah, probably a decade ago. And the first time I saw it, I remember being distinctly disappointed. Yeah, because part one to me is more of a horror film in a lot of ways. It's more grounded. It's a lot more serious. We're following this single mother and her son. You know what I mean? And their ordeal with this demonic doll, you know what I mean? And nobody believes them. You know, it's like the first time, obviously they carry these themes into the second 2 movies. You know, doll comes, does fucked up shit. Everybody doesn't believe Andy. You know what I mean? It's the same thing again and again. So for me, they don't necessarily beat the first one. So yeah, I remember being disappointed by the second one, but I didn't hate it. You know, I've wanted to rewatch it a few times in my life, so I know I didn't hate it. But yeah. First initial thoughts, probably disappointed. And on this watch, probably the same, man. It really hasn't changed for me in all these years. The way I feel about it then, I think I feel about it now.
So you don't have much nostalgia for the movie at all. Is it the same with you, Steph? I mean, I know you just said you're familiar with it, but not overly. But like watching Child's Play 2, is there any nostalgia for you, or is it something that you just kind of vaguely remember from back in the day?
There's certain scenes, but sorry, my nephew's in the background throwing a
You're good.
tantrum. If you can hear it.
No, bring him
But
on. See if he has opinions.
How many backlogs?
Yeah.
but I don't have a strong tie to this movie. But I will say I'm in the camp of I enjoyed. This was my favorite Chucky of the three for the longest time, or the OG3. I definitely agree with you, Fable, where I feel like it's more of a horror movie in the first one, like it's more geared towards that, and this one is the second one's more about getting kids involved, and it's more kid centric. But I also feel like, don't get me wrong, he's classic in the first one, but I feel like him being kind of like an animated doll, like they really go for some things in the second one, in terms of him. I don't know. There's some iconic things, like at the end in the toy factory, when he's crawling towards Andy on that little thing, and he's got the knife in his hand. Totally reminded me of Toy Story, where the creature, the little toy, Andy, toys, crawls out the bed, and he's like, and the kid's name was Andy, oddly enough, and it was both of them were toys coming to life.
I've always wondered if they did that purposefully. I've always had the feeling it's too obvious that they did. You know what I mean? I've always thought that.
Yeah.
But he definitely becomes what he's gonna be in this movie.
Right.
The second one.
Right. But that's what's kind of interesting about him. Like, especially really watching these three movies recently and like studying them the way I have been prepping for this. I said it when we talked about Child's Play 1. He comes in, Chucky does, more fully formed than Freddy or Jason or some of the other slashers, but he's not to where he gets, like Bride of Chucky is where he gets to where he is now. That's like who Chucky is. But there's a gradual evolution in 1, 2, and 3 that's really interesting to watch. It's there in 1. I don't know if you guys, when was the last time you guys watched that? But there's a moment where this old lady sees him on the elevator and she's like, ugly doll. And he's like, fuck you. And that's like, yeah, that's Chucky. That's who Chucky still is in 2023. But you see the evolution. He becomes more so that in 2, and then it gets he's even more jokey and punchliney in 3, I think. And then 4 is where they don't just change. Chucky kind of stays the same. Well, he develops, but the tone of the whole movie shifts more comedic once it gets to Bride. You know what I mean? It becomes actual comedy at that point instead of a comedic aspect.
Bride is 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Which it came out, I think it was 7 years after part 3. So there was a long break in between there, and they rebrand everything, update it for the new post Scream generation. But sorry, I didn't want to cut you off, Lynk. Did you have more to go where you were headed with that?
No, I kind of forgot what I was saying.
That's why I shouldn't have interrupted you.
No,
that's my fault.
What do you guys think about? Okay, well, actually, let me go back. I have a tendency to do this. You guys know it's a running joke on DHS. I got to watch a movie twice before I can form any kind of opinion on this fucking thing. But another thing that I do a lot is there'll be a movie that like in the last handful of years, I've really got into getting into old movies, like stuff that I loved when I was a kid, hadn't watched in 25 years or whatever. So like a lot of times with these movies, I'll be like, oh, I'm so excited to watch this. This is going to be another banger. And I'll put it on and I'll be like, yeah. And I'll be like, it just kind of falls flat with me. I bought this movie like a couple months back and I put it on and there's a lot of nostalgia with it. And I'm really impressed by the visuals and the iconography. I think this movie has more iconography than maybe any of the other Chucky's. Maybe possibly Bride of Chucky would be the exception. But so I wasn't blown away by it. And then I watched this fucker like 2 nights ago and I was flabbergasted. Like I was so into this movie. It's sickening, dude. Like I think the story is really, and I watched it after watching 3, which we're going to get into. And 3 has, I think, a lot more story issues. There's a lot of good ideas in 3, but the story falls apart. And this one, comparing it to 1 and 3, they keep it really simple. It's just Andy. Andy's your main character. He's getting in trouble. He's struggling with his mom being gone. He's got this older sister. There's all these really simple little relationships that every bit of that works for me. And that's kind of the biggest thing is Andy and Kyle. Like that relationship, whatever. I grew up with older stepsisters, and there was just something about that it was like I really related to her
Mm.
and their relationship as a kid. And then Andy's struggle with he took away his mom. It's like that is a huge thing for any kid to go through. So like I don't know, I just really connected with the movie. And then watching it now, it's like, dude, the style of this, which I found I'm more into than almost anything when it comes to horror, is, in my opinion, just like fire as fuck. Like I love all the low point of views, the wide angle, the crazy lighting, and all that. So I don't know. I was really blown away by the movie when I watched it, but there's way more nostalgia for this movie from my standpoint than your guys for sure. So I get that side of it. But as I'm rambling, what did you guys? Because I think one of the biggest things is the kills, obviously, in any of these. What do you guys think of the kills in Child's Play 2? They're toned down. They're not like crazy gory, but what do you guys think of them overall? Whoever wants to jump in first.
You know, they were competent. They got the job done. I agree with you. They weren't like over the top or too like gory, but there was personality there with him, I guess. Like, you know, for when the stepdad or the foster dad falls down the stairs or Chucky trips him and he like breaks his neck, like that's not over the top, but there's a little flair there just because Chucky has like these little zingers and he's just, you know, they're like showing, you know, like showing him like behind the stairs, like smiling, holding, you know, because he's glad he's about to trip this dude. And, you know, so I thought they got the job done. You know, it wasn't too crazy, but I think I agree. The style worked.
I love that you say that they show Chucky. Like, I don't think the first movie does that. And it's something that you don't get out of other slashers is like, you're never going to see Jason unless like, you're not just going to see Jason going around doing stuff by himself or Michael Myers or even Freddy, but like you kind of hang out with Chucky. You can look, the camera will flash over and you'll see Chucky reacting to about to kill Phil, or when he sees the Kyle sitting there about to unbury the Chucky doll that he buried, and you see his eyes getting big. Like he's so different than other slashers because at times we go through his perspective, which we almost never do with other icons. But what about you, Phable? Is there any kill that stood out to you, or is there what did you just think of the kills overall?
The kills were very toned down. It's very PG-13ish kind of killing going on. And I think they were a little more goofy. This is where the tone of Bride of Chucky kind of starts seeping in, especially in the factory when the machine plants the eyeballs in the guy's head, and he has the goofy eyes on the conveyor belt. So
this echo is getting like really fucking crazy. You guys hearing this, or am I just hearing it?
Yeah, no, I hear echo.
All right,
Yeah,
maybe I should have said something a minute ago. I'm sitting here vibing to it because it's like fucking doing some rhythm in the back. No, we're good now. Sorry, brother.
No, it's all good. It's all good. So yeah, it doesn't have many kills. They're very understated, very PG-13ish kills. And they're a little. This is where it starts getting a little goofy. You know, the tone you could see it. It's a little more campy-ish. But you know, like I said, I watched the first movie. The first movie had this dark, scary tone. And that's the tone I fell in love with for Chucky. Now, going forward, we get to Bride of Chucky, and Bride of Chucky, I mean, just in the title alone, you should know what you're getting yourself into, right? That the tone they're going for. And I like that movie so much, it retroactively makes all the goofiness of 2 and 3 okay now. You know what I mean? Whereas before it turned me off, now it's like, no, that's Chucky. Like, Chucky's crazy like that. You know, he does wild shit. So, you know, I would say a contrast between when I first saw these movies post Bride of Chucky, it changes how I feel about 2 and 3. You know what I mean? Not to say that I love 2 and 3, but I like them a lot more now, given the context of Bride of Chucky. Going backwards.
Right. I don't know, man. I mean, tone is a weird thing and like scares and all that. But I feel like 2, I don't think either of them are very scary, but I feel like there is like an atmosphere in the second one that is creepy. I think 3 at times is scarier than the first 2 in my opinion. We might disagree on that. A lot of it has to do with the sound design in 3. But in
Well,
2, I think
one is a
it's
little
fairly
more
creepy.
grimier too. One is grimier, like like it's like this apartment building in Chicago or something like that. I
Right.
don't know.
Yeah, and
And,
you've got
and,
Chucky
and,
going into Capri Green and shit like
yeah,
that.
this scary hallways and there's this grime to part one that's missing immediately in two. Two is clean, much
Mm.
cleaner, especially when he walks into the house, the foster home, and you see these
Right.
purples and the you know, yeah.
It's like the psychedelic Child's Play. You know what I mean? It's like kind of
Right.
cartoony and stuff. I don't know though. Fucking tone is so weird, dude. Because when I watched it not long ago, I didn't feel that, but when I was in that right frame mindset, like I did think it had a really creepy atmosphere. But what about you, Link? As far as just like the tone and the atmosphere and the creepiness, you agree with Fable?
Oh, so yeah, I think I'm the one echoing, so I have my stuff on mute
Oh,
real
you're good,
quick.
bro.
But I do agree. I think there is a griminess to the first one, and two almost reminds me of that Toys movie with like Robin Williams. In
Yeah.
Yes,
turn,
it does.
it's
It gives
very
you that vibe.
colored and very fun design. So three, I get what they're. We'll get into three, but I feel like three was all over the place.
Yeah, it was.
But yeah,
I think as far as just to get back to the kills for a second and the iconic imagery, like when I think Child's Play, one of the first images that's going to come into my head is Chucky walking with the ruler about to kill the teacher. And I think that's a
Mm.
good example of the type of kill that we get where they're like, we're not going to show anything. We're going to make it kind of artistic and we're going to take our time shooting it, make Chucky look cool, which I'll say I think Chucky looks cool as fuck in part 2. Better than part 1, better than part 3. And but yeah, they don't show much blood. It looks cool as shit, and it's themed with like this childhood theme. Like I've watched this movie like a lot of times over the years in the past. I never like took into account when he's killing that guy in the car and he's choking him, which is another thing I'm realizing. A lot of Chucky's kills are on someone's back choking him, just so you can see him in the camera and shit. But he's doing it with a jump rope, or he's got him tied up with a jump rope. He's gagging him with a toy that's got a or with a bag with toy logos on it, just like little themed kills throughout the whole thing that I was picking up more on. And they continue that in 3. But you guys have any more? You want to just go ahead and do your overall rating on 2? Or you want to save until
I
after? Let's just do it now. Let's go ahead and give if you got final thoughts on this, anything you want to say about the cast or what you think of the crew or anything, and then just give your ratings on this one, and we'll move on to 3. Same with you guys down in the chat, by the way. If you want to give your letter grade for part 2, get it down there.
I do. I enjoy the theme of the second one where it's like, kids, where they say kids are more attuned to like the spiritual world or whatnot, and they're more likely to see spirits or something like that. So I feel like this ties into that with the whole, of course, the kid can see the toy come into life, and no one believes the kid, but the kid's telling the truth. Um, yeah, I enjoyed this more than I thought I was gonna enjoy it, and it might be because the third one was a. We'll get to that, but yeah, I really enjoyed the second one. I will give this one a 3.69.
What does that equate on what's your letter grade?
C plus, C plus, I think. That's a C
One,
plus, I think.
you know what? I'll give it a. It's either C plus or B minus. I'll give it a B minus.
It's either. It's either. Yeah, B minus.
All right, B minus from Steph. I love it, dude. But I was really curious. Like, I like doing these with you guys because I don't know what you guys think, and even after, because we had planned this before we did the burning, and then when I talked to the burning with you guys, I'm like, what's your palette for 80 slashes? And both of you are like, nah, and I'm like, oh, so. But I'm glad to get one of these mainstream big ones in with you guys just to get a more of a feel for it, because this is like we talk a lot of times about like the fanboyness. If I'm gonna fanboy out on something horror wise, it's gonna be the icons. It's gonna be Chucky and Michael and Freddy. Because I remember saying it when we did the Freddy franchise review. Every time Freddy Krueger is on screen, I'm like, like I'm just like excited about it. It's kind of the same thing for Chucky. I'm never like disappointed when I see the guy. It's like it's very exciting. But what about you, Phable? What's your overall thoughts on it? If you got anything else you want to throw in, and then your letter grade.
This movie is just okay for me. You know what I mean? It's not really too much to it to me because this is like the Halloween 2 to Halloween for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know how Halloween, he's chasing the lady around, and then Halloween 2 takes place like right after, and she's on the hospital floor. You know what I mean? That vibe. This feels like it's like right after. This is the day after part 1, and this is what's going on with the kid. You know what I mean? Because he looks like he just
right.
I mean, how far apart are these movies? This kid didn't grow up at all between part 1 and part 2. He's the same size and everything.
I think his acting got better. Not to cut you off, but he's so fucking ridiculous in part 1, and like I think he carries this movie in a lot of ways in this one. He does a great job. But sorry.
Yeah. No. But I always remember The Factory.
Yep, me too.
No matter how many years pass by, when I was talking to my wife about watching these movies, I said, which one's the one in The Factory? Is that part 3 or is that part 2? It's just like, that's part 2. And then we're watching part 2, or I'm watching part 2, and I'm waiting for The Factory part, like through the whole movie.
Right.
Just to get to The Factory, because I just vividly remember that factory scene. So, that's saying something is what I'm trying to say with that. You know what I mean? I'm trying to say that if it stuck with me that many years, it's worthy of something.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Plus, retroactively, it's kind of the birth of pun Chucky, silly Chucky or whatever. Right. And I do enjoy that Chucky. You know what I mean? I do. So like I said, even though I found these disappointing back in the days, I find them much more enjoyable now retroactively because of the tone Chucky has set for himself since Bride.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like the same thing with Freddy, right? Like to me, Freddy is the king of the puns and the being the funny and this type of character in a sense. You know what I mean? You're Chucky, Freddy, you know what I'm trying to say?
No, I 100%. Like they're the two most easy to compare of the icon. There's Michael and Jason. They're like the same fucking thing.
But like how Freddy you grew up with part 2 of Chucky and like Bride and this is your guy. Like that's how it was for me. There was a point where Freddy was a serious character, and then we get to part 3, and bam, we get silly Freddy, and I bought it. I was all in back then. You know what I mean? So. Same thing here, man. So yeah, very enjoyable movie. Just to point out, this got one of those blonde angsty chicks that looks sort of hot, but not really. Like I don't know what happened in the '90s where we had these characters, but we had a lot of these ladies in these movies. But I enjoyed her.
Right,
I liked her a lot.
No disrespect to the actress. I never found her attractive, but I think she's perfect for the fucking role. She was in 90210, and she was in
It's
Baywatch and other shit.
It's like the chick in the Faculty.
Right. They're like interchangeable. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's like Ali Sheedy and The Breakfast Club. Like
yeah, they're like the same person. She's actually that when watching Chucky season 1 when that came out, when her and Alex show up, because she shows up in the new TV show, and like it hit me with all this nostalgia I hadn't felt in some years. I was like, holy shit. Because I don't know, for whatever reason, I just always really connected to her.
Yeah. I mean, the last woman like that for me is Starbuck, or the lady that plays Bo-Katan, I think her name is in Star Wars. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. She has that. Yes, Katie says she has that same flavor for me. But anyway, long story short, I'm gonna give this the same thing. B-, man.
Oh, nice.
I enjoyed it. Yeah.
I was feeling more of. I didn't know where you were going with it. I thought
I was gonna go C+. But I think this movie has stood the test of time for me.
Nice.
You know what I mean? Like I said, for me, remembering The Factory, because there's a lot of movies that we rewatched on Dylan's Harvest Show and on this show that it was like a new movie for me. Because it's like, you know what I'm saying? I haven't seen it in so long. Wasn't that great back then. I don't know if it's gonna be good now. This one, I remember a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? So that's saying a lot. Got to give her points for that.
Hell yeah, brother. Well said. I I was all over the place with my rating, but like I said, dude, I enjoyed this shit so much last night. The nostalgia is there so strongly for me. After just watching and reviewing Child's Play 1, I very strongly feel that this is just a stronger film fucking down the line for me. It's just it's more focused. Like the last film was written by Don Mancini, then rewritten by John LaFia, then rewritten by Tom Holland, not Spider-Man. And this film was just written by Don Mancini. It's just nice and fucking clean. And one of my big beefs with Child's Play 1 is there was no, like, at the end of it, there was no, I don't know if you guys remember, but the cop just shows up and saves the fucking day. The mom and Andy just like, oh God, policeman, help us. And they don't do shit. I love that Andy and the sister, they are saving the day at the end. Andy's fucking, he thinks he kills Chucky. Then Kyle blows him up, which is iconic and amazing. So I was like floored by this movie last night. And even all my beefs that I did have with it was like, it's corny kills. The kills are cheesy. There's not like a lot of super interesting themes, but the themes are universal. Like, you know what I mean? This longing for family and not feeling like you fit in. So I don't know. I don't think there's any fluff, and it just flows, dude, so well. I'm giving it an A, dude. I love the thing so much. So I'm not going to be nearly as forgiving with Child's Play 3 when we get into that bad boy. But with you, I'm giving it an A.
I took notes for Child's Play 3. We got to get into Child's Play.
Well, let's do it. Let's do this thing. All right. So Child's Play 3, as we said, it came out less than a year after Child's Play 2. They made a bunch of money on both these movies back to back. Yeah, it came out. Child's Play 2 released 11/9/1990, and then 3 came out 8/30/91. It was directed by Jack Bender, who I guess at the time he was a pretty popular TV director, and since then he's done episodes of Lost, The Sopranos, and Game of Thrones.
Oh, okay. I know he did some of the key episodes in Lost. Jack Bender, I remember his name.
It's weird because I used to do gay porn under the name Jack Bender when I was in college. So I was like, whoa.
Hey, yo, it sounded like a fake name at first.
It
like,
does, doesn't it?
Been trying to do a fake.
This one written by Don Mancini again, and they switch actors. This is kind of the big thing from this movie. They age up Andy like 8 years or so. They go with a much older actor named Justin Whalen, and like the actor Alex Vincent that played Andy, like you could tell like he was heartbroken over the shit. It's weird that they do this, and I look back, like I said, it came out a year later. I can't imagine audiences like they must have been weirded out or buying. They did the same thing with Tommy Jarvis in the Friday the 13th franchise. Like he's a little kid in 4, and then he's like almost a man in parts 5.
I don't remember that. I don't remember that ever jarring me or I don't remember that because I saw both of these in the movies.
Right. Well, do you guys agree? Like he looks like Alex Vincent. Like you could imagine him looking. They did a good job of picking a guy that looks like him, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and he did a decent job. He did a good job. I don't think the character was well written, and I think that's the biggest problem with this whole movie. So the rest of the stats on it, it made 20.5 million on 13 million, so profitable, but not as profitable as 2, not nearly as profitable. Rotten Tomatoes score of 21%, IMDb of 5.9, and shockingly, a Google user rating higher than part 2 of 80%.
What?
Google, yeah, I know. I don't know. Why do I read these stats? I don't know. I just sometimes find them interesting. So
that's funny.
I don't know about you guys, but as far as we don't got to go through the whole thing of your necessarily your memories of this one, but for me, like I remember watching this quite a bit, but like 2, I would rewatch occasionally throughout my life. It had probably been 5-10 years since I'd seen it until recently. But 3, I don't think I'd seen this bastard since like 92. But I do remember I watched it a lot, like when it came out, but haven't seen it in forever. And I think I remember liking it. When you're a kid, you like everything. I think I loved it when I was a little kid. Yeah. Chucky's funnier than ever in this one. You get a lot of Chucky. And one of the things, I looked this up like right before we got rolling because I got curious. I was like, when the fuck was Desert Storm? Sure as shit, Desert Storm was right before this. So I wonder if this was in Mancini at the back of his mind, the country's at war, let's put him in a military school. Like, what led them down this path?
Right.
But I don't know. I don't hate the movie. I still enjoy like certain aspects of the film. It's better than a lot of, slashers that are out there, in my opinion. But I don't know who we started with last time, but whoever wants to go first, like, what are you guys' overall thoughts on this bad boy, Child's Play 2? Whoever wants to jump in. Oh, 3. You're right. I'm sorry, brother. Child's Play 3. Thank you.
Oh no, it's all right. No, this one, I get the idea because they really amp up the whole it being very kid focused, because now it's not just 2 kids, it's a whole platoon of kids that have shenanigans. But it just, there's certain parts of work, like as a kid I really enjoyed this. Like I remember as a kid I really enjoyed the ending where he's like trying to set up the squads against each other, and like one side's got live ammunition, and I distinctly remember the kid always jumping on the grenade and getting like up.
Whitehurst, R.I.P., buddy.
Yeah. But he was, at the end of the day, I feel like it did, like the whole, where it wasn't too gory or bloody in the second one, it kind of worked because it was already, the color palette was all bright and it was super toy-like to begin with. But this one, it just kind of falls short. Like I watched this one and I just kept saying, this is a prime 90s movie, bro. Like, this is just not all the way through. Like the shots, Chucky is funnier. I will give it that. Like Phable, you said earlier, there's an evolution, or I think it might have been you. You guys might have both said it, but there's an evolution of Chucky throughout the films, and you see that peak at Bride of Chucky, where that's become like the staple of him. But in this one, you kind of see him ramp up again. Chucky's got more personality. He's got more. I think we see more of Chucky in this one, to be honest, than the previous 2. So I will give it that. Good. No, not at all. Not at all. Where the second one, he looked cool and was doing cool shit. This one looked a little cheap. I definitely spotted that. I don't know if it was like it seemed like it had a decent budget. I don't know where it went wrong. Maybe it was the aging up, and it's like, I don't know. This one did not sit well with me. I liked it as a kid though a lot. I will say that.
I think, and we don't got to get too deep into it. I'll let Phable go when we get back into it. But Don Mancini, who wrote this movie, I fucking love this guy. He's so good with his interviews and his honestness, and he really gives you the vibe of like some guy that just like doesn't really have the skill or talent, that just worked his way into the industry and made relationships and got in there and is doing the best he can with it. And he's really honest about like, this isn't well written. Like, this isn't that. It's got good ideas, but they don't execute. But I'll get deeper into it with my review. What about you, Phable? Where are you at on it on the rewatch?
Interesting hearing all this stuff because it totally plays into how I feel about this movie. Like, you guys telling me it has a less than a year turnaround. It feels that way. Lynk said that it's cheap. Yeah, it looks cheaper. It definitely looks cheaper. It definitely looks straight to video sort of quality, even though I know this came out in movies. I saw it in the movies. I didn't have too much of a problem with it in back in the days, but by this time I knew it was over. I knew my whatever I wanted for part 1, whatever to salvage from that wasn't coming back. Like the Chucky was, joking around or whatever. That's what it was. And like I said, the retroactiveness of Bride makes me enjoy his comedy a lot more in this than I did back in the days. But that being said, this is the dumbest fucking one out of all of them. Like, this shit is brain dead. Like, there's a lot of leaps of logic in this fucking movie. Like, I wrote down a whole entire list of illogical shit. Just to go down just a few of these, like, like the blood still being fresh 6 years after he fucking died, and they have
magic blood.
A fresh vat of melted plastic ready to go in this fucking like cobwebbed factory. It's the stupidest shit. And then when the board is there and they're like, I think it's a bad idea. The bad guy Doll and Andy and all this other shit is like, yeah, well, the factory's open. we already made you a fucking doll. It's like,
Right.
why are we having this meeting then? Just shit like that. The guy walks in with the doll, and he's like, "Oh, just leave it there." He leaves it on the couch, walks away, and then how the hell did fucking Chucky get out the box? There was no way for Chucky to get out the box. Nobody noticed. There's a lot of shit like this in this
Yeah.
movie.
Oh
So,
yeah.
and they have a bunch of kids, teenagers, and a clearly 25 to 27-year-old woman trying to play the same age as Andy.
The
when
girl.
she kisses him, I was like, oh.
I thought that too, dude. I was like, am I just wrong about this? But yeah, you agree. Like, yeah, she definitely looks way too old. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a lot of leaps of logic. It's a lot of dumb shit in part 3. The only redeeming quality, like I said, is the comedy that Chucky brings. You know what I mean? He makes it fun. He makes it interesting. So yeah, man.
I agree with a shitload of what you said, but I will disagree slightly as far as the look of it. Like, I think Chucky, almost in every movie, there's times that Chucky looks fucking weird. You're gonna see a scene or two, they're like, oh, he fucking looks goofy. There's more of that in this one than 2 and 3. But as far as, in my opinion, like the production level and the direction, I think is really solid. It's not as it's a little more generic than John LaFia, but I think it's good. I think it's a well shot, well lit movie, but it's just not as exciting looking as 2. It's more dull because of the military setting. But I don't know. Do you think, when you were saying it looked like cheap, do you think the camera movements and all that, both, either of you, do you think it looks like a shitty production level?
I mean, like when they were okay, so you got the factory is the big set piece for the finale of the second one.
Mhm.
Now in this one, it's the haunted house,
Yeah.
right? Chucky looks like he's one of the dolls in the haunted house. The way he's moving on platforms, like
Right.
he's doing this through the whole thing. Like he's hardly moving, and it's depending on too many like still shots and tricks of you know what I mean? Camera
So you're
tricks.
talking more just like Chucky looks like a cheaper,
I just feel like
more
they ran
rushed
out of
out.
money,
Yeah,
and some of the death is implied. There's at least 2 implied deaths here that don't really
Right.
fully play out. I think.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up, dude, because there was
Yeah.
my favorite death from the second one. I agree. In this one, they do it in kind of a cheap way with a couple times they just find a dead person. But I thought it was really creepy in the second one when Kyle, the older sister, finds the foster mom and she's like spins around on the chair, and she, like, to me that was the creepiest bit in the whole
Yeah.
movie. It's this long scene of Kyle going up there
Oh,
to
yeah.
discover her. I thought that was fucking great. But no, I agree with everything you said about the Chucky, or about Chucky in 3 and how he looks a little bit cheaper. But where are you at, Link, on just your overall thoughts or anything that you want to add on to what we were just saying?
I watched this on VHS actually too, which is crazy. Well, not really VHS. I had to watch on 480p, so it might as well have been VHS. But I don't know. It felt like there were like made for TV kids movies back in the day in the 90s and early aughts. This had like that feel. I can't. It was competent, enough. It was competently enough done, but it just. I can't say, there's one shot in particular that was just kind of like one of those weird angled 90s shots where they kind of like tilt it sideways just to try to make it edgy.
Right. There's some snap zooms that zoom in on people's faces and shit.
Yeah.
I just look at that as like of his time. But if you guys are both pointing that out, maybe I need to fucking revisit this movie, because he is a TV director, and if you guys are saying it look made for TV, maybe I'm missing some shit.
No, I mean, it wasn't bad, but I definitely got like made for TV vibes. And then you saying that he's a TV director, primarily Jack Bender, it makes sense. But it was fine enough. It wasn't bad, but it was less than the first 2 for me,
Right.
production wise.
What about just overall? Or is it the same with you, where you? I think you already might have said it. This wasn't one of your favorites from childhood either.
No, I watched this quite a bit as a kid. I think it's because it's so toned down. I think it's probably the most suitable for kids. Yeah. So I don't know. I because it's like military kids geared to, in a military training school. I get like they were aiming for kids, but no, I actually watched this one quite a bit. I enjoyed it as a kid, but this watch, like I said, I always remember the kid looking at or what was his name? RP. But the grenade scene that always stuck with me. But
Mm-hmm.
adult, it was a hard, I was just like, yeah.
Yeah, it's different when you're a kid watching other kids in movies growing up. Like, you
Right.
know what I
Oh my
mean? Because
god.
that's my connection to like the Goonies or something like that. Like, because I was a kid, they're kids, and we're like they're doing cool stuff that I want to do or I wish I could do. You know,
Right.
they're going on adventures and stuff like that. Like, it's different when you're an adult. You're watching. It's like, who's letting these kids out? Who's watching this fucking kid?
It's so crazy too, like when you're like I can remember being a kid and like in part 2, that older sister, or even like in part 3, like Andy, everybody's so much older than me there. But now it's like these are fucking kids. They're all kids. But when
Right.
you're I wonder if they were trying to like, oh well, let's aim for because most slashers of the era had teenagers, older teens, usually being played by people in their 30s. Maybe they were trying to like, oh, let's get some older teens and then Tyler, the young kid, to try to appeal to both those demographics. Which,
Mm.
while I'm thinking of it, I do want to bring up uh, Don Mancini. He pointed out 2 casting like issues that he had with the casting of the film. A big one was that Tyler, the young kid who now Chucky's trying to go into his body, Don Mancini wanted him to be like a 6-year-old kid because
Mm.
this is one of those things. It's like once he said it, I'm like, oh my god, this has been in the back of my mind for 30 years. It's like the kid's too old. He shouldn't necessarily like buy into the fact that this doll is talking to him and just like roll with
Right.
it the way that he does. That is fucking weird.
Yeah.
And then the Colonel guy, Colonel Cochran, who was like, listen here, Andy, you've been a bad boy. Like he's fucking he was supposed to be like Gunny. Listen here, you fucking maggot. Like he was supposed to be that type of guy. I think they actually wanted that actor.
Mm.
You know, talking about
Yeah, yeah,
from all those
yeah.
fucking things that he's an
Uh-huh.
asshole in.
He always plays a sergeant and
Yeah,
shit.
they wanted that
Yeah.
dude. So then, like, imagine if it was that actor and he sees Chucky and he dies of a heart attack. Like that was supposed to be a punchline. That whole kill
Mm,
was supposed to
mm.
be a joke, which it is funny as shit when Chucky's like,
Yeah.
"You got to be fucking kidding me!" Like that's like one of the best moments of the whole, or one of the funniest bits of the film. But I just thought that was interesting. Like those 2 uh casting choices. Once you write this shit, it's out of your hands. Like the Colonel, he was some friend of the director. He did a bunch of TV work, and I don't know why they ended up with that kid, but that was worth pointing out. Same thing, dude. I guess it's kind of the same. I don't need to ask you guys again. But did you have a favorite kill, either of you, from this one, and just your thoughts? Pretty much, probably the same level of violence, level of gore, level of creativity that you get in this movie as the last one. You guys pretty much feel the same on that?
Yeah. Um, yeah. Yeah. There's nothing too extravagant about the kills in these movies. It's either
Mhm.
slitting their throats or, something. I don't know. They're falling and hurting themselves.
Strangling. That's the line from my
Yeah.
childhood. Nothing like a good strangulation to get the circulation.
Yeah.
Like that was, but I will say, the build up, I mentioned the suspense
What
earlier.
happens to Chucky
Mhm.
is more interesting than what happens to the people.
Right,
Right? Like Chucky in part two, when his hand comes off in the shit and he has to pull it off himself, and you see all the tendons and everything
right.
in his thing. And then in part three, they cut off half his face. And it's like what happens to him is more gruesome and more entertaining than what happens to what he
So
does to other people.
great point, dude. I never thought of it like that, but it's also more. It's the same reason why South Park, the cartoon characters, can say whatever the fuck they want and get away with it. It's more tolerable, especially for a kid, to see this dog get. Yeah, I never thought of it like that. You're getting the body horror from Chucky, and they spare the gore and the kills to make it more palatable for children. That's fucking. That's a really that's interesting right there, man.
Yeah.
Um, I did want to point out because I'd written some of the things we talked about the story and how I thought that was the weakest part of this one. I think like I look at it from like Don Mancini's perspective, everything he's setting up has the potential to be interesting. They've got Andy now; he's older. Oh, let's bring in a female interest. That doesn't pan out at all. It's so lazily done. They don't go anywhere with it. We've got Tyler, so we've got this younger kid. his relationship between him and Chucky could be interesting. It's not. His relationship between him and Andy, or maybe him and the Colonel, like they've set all these things up. They don't really do anything with any of that, especially Tyler and Chucky. They should have like focused more on Tyler and then maybe focus more on Andy and Tyler's relationship, ditch the girl so that you could make Andy and Tyler more interesting together. You know what I mean? But what do you guys think about that? Just like the writing of it and any of that?
I thought that there was I don't know if they really explained it much, but whole Andy being at military school, I kind of assumed that he kind of I thought there was something there where they could have explored that maybe he had some behavioral issues because of the shit he experienced with Chucky growing up, and he seemed like he was kind of like a good kid, so I was kind of questioning why is he at military school, but I thought that there was something there in terms of you could have explore like the ramifications or like the psychological trauma he's been going through. Maybe it's too deep for the movie they wanted to shoot, but I saw a potential there story wise with that. But no, I agree. There's a lot of things that set up that they just didn't go anywhere with, or I thought it was they didn't really focus on it until the end. But like you said, they should have focused more on Tyler and Andy's relationship, since he's like the new Andy in a sense. But yeah, there's just a lot of just a lot of setup, but no payoff with some of the story. A lot of the story beats.
Hell yeah, dude! I love I
no.
love that fact. Just thinking of it as I'm watching this, I'm like, oh, I never thought about it when I was a kid. Evidently, I was raised right. I was like, Chucky's trying to become a young black male. This is interesting.
Oh, he makes a joke about it.
I never got that joke when I was a kid. He's like, picture that. I'm gonna be a bro. And it's like, oh my god, like that would have been fucking wild. Imagine if that's where we are in 2023. That Chucky is some young black kid go around popping people or cutting people up. Should have went that route.
And it might have been the second or the third, but I was like, man, that line would not fly today, bro. Like I get even within the context of the movie, but there was I got to look it up. I'll message it to you guys. But I was like, that shit would not. Hey, they were being so deep, bro.
Yeah, no, I cringed when he said it. So imagine Chuck's gonna be a bro. I was like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, he could have chosen a worse term, I guess. Bro is fairly PC.
But I think some of the issue with it is that well, first the little kid, I think it's kind of implied. I don't know if it's totally implied. Well, first, I think that the kid's father is a big deal, whoever that kid's father is. Because they said something about his dad being away and that he'll be back.
He's out there saving the world.
Yeah, he's out there saying that he'll be back. You know what I mean? That's the first line I got. And then also, he's always got a video game system when nobody got a video game system, and this is supposed to be some strict ass place. So that made me also think he's a kid of privilege. Either he's privileged or he's slow. Purposely slow, and they know he is. They just give him a video game to just like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I think the intent is that you feel bad for this little boy because he's so innocent and so dumb that he doesn't know that Chucky is tricking him or whatever. The problem is that this kid sucks as an actor. He doesn't bring any of this across. And the writing is terrible, like you said. So
if they're trying to do that, then they shouldn't have had him steal Chucky.
Yeah,
you're killing the whole innocent kid thing right there. He just stole it.
For sure. But then they might be one of them kids that be like, oh, I know this is a toy, and he just doesn't think that way. You know what I'm saying? To him, it's not a big deal opening somebody's packages. Where to us, it's like, you don't open people's packages. Like, you crazy? But he's like, it's a toy. It's a toy. I got to open it. Anyway, I think that was what they were aiming for. But like you guys pointed out, the reason why they doesn't, resonate or go anywhere is because of the writing, like you said. And my point, the acting. I think the kid don't have the chops to pull that off.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's tough when you got a kid that age. But yeah, it's a lot of setup without knowing how to pay the thing off. I did want to mention the best character in the movie, maybe the second best character of the entire fucking franchise. It's a shame he got killed and couldn't come back, be a reoccurring character. But that fucking barber, he saves the day for me. He's so fucking committed to the role. The best is what he's going through. the mess hall. He's looking at people's hair. He's like, Wednesday. Tuesday. At one point when he goes by Andy, like I rewound it, did it in slow motion. I think he sniffs his hair. He's like, Wednesday. Like gives him a little whiff, but he's hysterical. Do you guys agree on that? Is he the best character in this film?
Yeah, I give it to him. Yeah, I loved it when he was like, "Yeah, those bangs are looking a little lengthy for me," and he's like giving people his schedule, like you said, he's scheduling appointments and shit like that. That's the only spotlight in there, or this bright light in this movie. No, it wasn't bad though. It wasn't bad.
Right. Yeah. Presto, you're bald.
If you would have had everybody leaning into it like he did, we might have remembered this movie a little bit different, because when I first saw him, you know, when he was weird stretching in the barber chair and stuff, and it's like grabbing his hair and like ooh and making these sexual noises like he's getting turned on by cutting this kid's hair.
Ooh,
and
we're seeing some skin.
Yeah, then we bring the kid back and it's like, oh, he actually has a badass haircut. The guy's a good barber.
Yeah. Yeah. What's funny is, and you've got me thinking this now, we might be able to credit him with the tone change in Bride of Chucky, because Don Mancini in an interview, he talks about being on set the day that the barber's going through the mess hall, and he walked up to him and he's like, hey, to the actor that plays the barber, you need to tone it down. In Don Mancini's mind, the only person that should be over the top in a Chucky movie is Chucky. He's like, that's the way the comedy works in these movies. You're being a cartoon character. You got to be normal, pretty much. And this guy like looked at him and was like, you're wrong. He's like, I'm a professional. Get the fuck out of here, kid, more or less. And then Mancini afterwards is like, clearly, he's like, I wrote this character paper thin. That's all he is a guy obsessed with kids' hair. He's like, how could he play this any other way, you know? But I think Don Mancini can look at that and be like, oh, so you're telling me other characters other than Chucky can be over the top? How about everybody? You know what I mean? And that's what we get in Bride of Chucky. And they add Tiffany and, you know, someone just as over the top as Chucky.
Yeah, like, and shout out to that actor. That's the father from Hellraiser.
Oh, shit.
Oh, my God, dude. I was trying to figure out what I knew him from and what I knew the dad in the first one from. And I looked him up. I looked the dad in the first one up, but I couldn't. I don't know what the fuck I know him from, but that's interesting.
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy. Well, you guys want to get into your overall thoughts and rating on this bad boy? Where you at on it, Steph? And everybody down in the chat below, let's hear your letter grade for the amazing Child's Play 3.
It wasn't terrible. A lot of cool ideas. This, you know, this one is boosted by a little bit of a nostalgia factor, but where I think, you know, it's debatable as to which people prefer between the first and the second one. And I think I can safely say this one is everyone's least favorite. This it fell short of shit that worked. I don't know, because I get what they were trying to do, but the execution fell short. And it was just a little boring. I'm not gonna lie, this watch was a little boring. I think this is a good for kids movie, like a kids entry horror movie type of stuff. Like, it's not too graphic, but it's just creepy enough. I will give this one a C-.
Very respectable score, my friend. What about you, Phable? Where you at, brother?
Like I said, I'll say it again. Bride of Chucky retroactively makes this more entertaining for me on this watch. But had I not had that in my mind, it's just a meh movie. Like Steph said, I gotta echo it. I did have to get through this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I stopped at the 30-minute point, did something, came back, did that again for another 25 minutes, had to do something. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't really hold me that way. And plus, I don't remember it as much as I remember part 2. So it takes away points from there. And I can forgive these kind of movies for leaps of logic and just dumb shit, you know what I mean? But I don't think this leans into its dumbness to make it much better than it was. And like you said, they came back with Bride of Chucky and they totally leaned to it, totally had more time to write the script and everything, looks better, shot better, effects, everything. You know what I mean? So,
right.
Yeah, I agree with Steph. C minus.
Nice. I was so confused for a moment. I'm like, damn, Bobby fucking hated it. He gave this thing an E. I'm like, oh my god, Jesus! But he was just saying hi to E. What up, Eric? A C for Bobby. Just to clarify. I respect the shit out of those grades. C plus is or C minus is probably where it should be. I'm looking at it because we talked about this before. It's like, how the fuck do you rate things? Do you rate things on your experience? This is a C experience for me, or do you rate it on like where it stands in history and like factoring in shit like that? And I think we all do a combination of those things: nostalgia, historical significance, blah blah blah, all that shit. And I think it's probably like a C minus C movie. But then I'm gonna bump it up to a C plus for me, just based on like is it an average slasher? Like it's about an average slasher. It's like the kills aren't that great, but it's got better acting and like even the better story than a lot of like really shitty slashers, right? But
Yeah, I can
so it's
agree.
pretty much right. It's average along those lines, but I'll just bump it up for me to a C plus because it has Chucky in it. Like if you take Chucky out of this movie, for me it's a C minus or a D or a fucking who gives a shit. We're not reviewing it. But if you put Chucky in it and now it's like that's worth a watch. It's worth for me owning and it's worth fucking
Yeah.
watching the special features in a few years. It's worth watching again. So a lot of those like average slashers there isn't that. Maybe watch them once, watch them twice, and you're done with it. I don't need to go back. But a movie like this, because of everything it holds, I'm going to continue to go back. So C plus for me, C minus for Fable and Link,
You
which is
know what?
probably fucking
Bump
accurate.
bump bump me to a C.
Yes.
Bump me to just a normal. Bump me to a normal C. You know why? I'm gonna say why. Because I think I've given. This is better than some of the shit we watched, and I think C minus. I've given some of the stuff we watched in the C minus area, and this is better than that stuff. So yeah, let's get it to a C. I'm
Right.
gonna
And
give it to a C.
the other
Yeah.
thing worth fucking
Yeah.
addressing, grading movies is fucking weird because we talked about
Yeah.
this
It's
a
tough.
little bit last week on DHS, but I'm just going to say it again on this show. There are movies that's like, "Oh, it's a monster movie." And it's an average monster movie. Well, to me, I don't really like monster movies that much. So
Right.
it might be a C minus or a D or whatever, but you take that same quality of movie, you put it in a slasher, and now all of a sudden that is for me. So it's the same quality. It's written, acted, and produced just as well. But it's in my fucking wheelhouse, so I like it more. So that's why like I'm almost tempted to do a show where we don't grade these things, but I also
Mm,
think it's fun to do, like for us and
yeah.
for the audience. So fuck it. But I just think that's worth pointing out that it is weird to grade these things against other movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It is, but even if you grade it against itself, I think you'd still get to the same
In the
point, right?
ballpark.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, because if you go against its own franchise and you start picking it apart, it's a little lower, in the lower tier for most people, I think.
It might be the fucking lowest. Like I've said, like I've watched
Yeah.
one, two, three, and four a bunch throughout my life. Two
I
and four are the most, but everything after this I've only seen once. So I'm gonna take it a long break after Bride before I revisit this franchise. But I'm stoked to because I actually enjoyed all the movies after Bride. But that was only a one-time watch. What were you saying, Luke?
I was gonna say I didn't really care for too much for the remake, and
Hmm.
once I rewatched this one, I was like the remake. I enjoyed the remake better than three. So yeah, three's
Mm.
not terrible by any means, but
Right.
I wasn't too fond of the remake, and I enjoyed the remake just a smidge more.
Yeah.
I could see that, man. I think that's one of those things that the remake kind of depends on your the nostalgia for Chucky in the first place. And that's another one I've only seen once. But I remember watching it, being halfway through it, and being like offended. And I'm not ever the type to get offended by a movie. I was like, what the fuck are they doing with the
Mm.
lore of Chucky? But then afterwards, I was like, I, what offended me is still true, but I don't know if it was that bad of a movie. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's just they like I didn't
Yeah.
like the route that they went, but with the route that they went, like
Right.
they probably did a decent job. But I was fucking clouded with red rage over what they were doing, you know?
This is one of those rare examples of a franchise where a later entry recolors earlier entries,
Mhm.
like the success of a later entry, like contextualizes like that. I think that happened with Freddy as well. Like I said, it was a serious horror movie. Dream Warriors came out, was a big hit. Totally recontextualized that whole series.
Totally.
Even things like Terminator. Terminator, to me, the first Terminator was just as much of a horror movie as A Nightmare on Elm Street. Like they were even in the same section. But when T2 comes out and it's this huge action movie, well, guess what? Terminator is now an action franchise.
Yeah, wow, that's a
Like, you
good.
know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah, yeah.
It does the same thing. Like,
100%, dude. Dylan, I've thought about this too. Here's the thing, because Dylan talked about, like, oh, we'll do a grading system based on like it's versus what it is. Let's grade this versus other 70s drive-in things. The problem with that is the problem I foresee with that, it's going to become very gatekeepery. Well, you can't fucking judge that. How many 80s slashers have
yeah,
you seen? So that's what, you know what I mean? Like, oh, this is a
yeah,
monster movie, but like it's gonna get really tricky to do. Like, oh, what is it a category based on that? So that's why
yeah.
I think all of us that do this, we just need to take all that criteria into account and then just give our rating based on that, because you can't like sit and what's your checklist? Oh, wait, hold on. I can't have you judge the 70s drive-in movie. Have you seen Kingdom of the Spiders? Have you seen you know what I mean? This is not gonna work.
Mm.
You guys agree with that?
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I think, yeah, I think it's whatever it is to you. Whatever you feel.
I was gonna.
Oh, God.
Oh no, I'm gonna go.
No, I was just saying, like, like a guy like Big Herm. Big Herm, he rates things purely on how he felt when he left the theater. Doesn't
Right.
care about acting, doesn't care about the special effects or the director photography. None of this stuff is going through Big Herm's head. If the ending lands, it's probably going to be a 5 backlog when he gets out that theater. You know what I mean? Regardless of anything. If he goes out, yeah.
Right.
It's a
Well,
5.
I've been thinking more about like you guys have been saying. One of you mentioned just like how when you bring up a movie, how does that make you feel? Like I think when we talked about Dust Till Dawn, someone's like Dust Till Dawn, you're like fuck yeah, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I
That
always
was
think
me,
of that
yeah.
about Chucky too. Like just like he's
Yeah.
someone that I'm just like hell yeah, like always will be. And that's probably why I was semi offended with what they did with the remake. I muted you for a second. Now I mute you. Now maybe you've done so. If you can unmute yourself, feel free necessary to. But all right, you guys wrap bad boy up. What's going on? Other thing is going on actually. Lynk has a brand new fucking comic show, which I went and had to set notifications because I keep missing the fucking live thing. I messaged Stu and be like, bro, I keep missing this thing. But I've turned on my notifications on what's Stu's Instagram? Do you know off the top of your head, Link? Dr. Doom's fan club?
Yeah.
Right? Dr. Doom's fan club on IG. Link's Instagram link is in the description below. Make sure you go check that out. So sub up to Link, sub up to Dr. Doom's fan club. If you're a fan of comics at all, get on IG and check out that show. And then Phable, you've got some news coming up. What do you got going on, brother?
Yeah, well, I don't have any shows planned immediately future, but we are planning to finally make the move to YouTube. Because my last 2 shows with Link and Stu, talk about Link and Stu, which by the way was my #1 viewed show of the season.
Oh yeah.
On IG. And also I had a show with Robbie and Chris from Lost in Comics, and that happened to be my 2nd most viewed show. So I'm getting more views, is what I'm trying to say here. And I can't rip the shows off of the IG. Whatever IG did, whatever update they did, not even the like third-party software that rips video from social sites, even those apps aren't working. So it's getting really frustrating. I'm getting to the point of just like, I love IG. I have a good audience there. We've been there 3 years. We've built a lot. We've done a lot there. But I think it's time to finally. I think we have a shot at building a real audience on YouTube as well.
Hell yeah. I know you do.
With the landscape of comic book YouTube and the things we talk about, I think we have a pretty competitive show that we can bring that offers something, just not just the normal. Because that was my thing with YouTube. It's like, what am I do that's different from the 1,000 people on YouTube are doing? You know what I mean? At least on IG, I don't have too much. You know what I mean? I don't have too much
right.
competition for eyes and stuff. I can get some eyes there. You know, it's just, but I think we've outgrown it in a lot of ways. Unless they
100%.
change the app, you know what I mean? I think we've outgrown it. And hey, now that gives us the opportunity to have more guests, more people at the same time, graphics, intros, outros, you know, all the things that come with YouTube. So yeah, man, that's probably that's my announcement.
Well, I fucking love it because I love watching your show. I do like you're totally right because it's like, what else am I really watching on Instagram other than now Stu and Steph's new show, which hopefully one day is coming to YouTube. And I know you guys post those to YouTube too, but like I've tried to, like, I've been on your show, Phable, and then afterwards, well, I'm a fucking egomaniac. Let me watch myself. And I tried to watch it on IG, and it keeps kicking you off and shit. Like it can be so frustrating to try. Like you put out a really good fucking show, and it's just I'm excited for people to make it easier for you to make it easier for people to enjoy the show at their leisure, rather than because it's best to catch that live. If you catch you live, there's never any hiccups. You know what I mean? But if you're doing a rewatch, it's like Jesus, Instagram, like what? You know,
yeah,
get
IG
your shit
doesn't
together.
make it friendly, and all I'm trying to do is grow that section of the Instagram, right? Like you would think that's what they want you to do, right? Like they give you these tools to create this content on their platform so that you can get views, they can commercialize it. You know how this works. And they're not giving us the tools that we need to create the content, you know, to keep people. I mean, how can you not minimize a live? But you can minimize a video chat. It just blows my mind. You guys are a billion-dollar software company. Insane to you make VR headsets, for God's sake.
Right. You make Facebook. Like,
like
bro,
what the hell?
my grandma's on Facebook.
Am I missing something? Hey, does anybody have IG that doesn't have a problem? Raise your hand.
Right, exactly.
Raise your hand if you haven't had a glitch in the last month on your Instagram. Right, nobody. Exactly. This doesn't make any sense, brother.
Hell yeah. Hell yes, my friend. I agree. Everybody down in the chat, you guys have been awesome tonight. I could not appreciate you more. Dylan, Sal, Bobby, Eric, Rogue Collecting, Scar to the Pad. Evan was in here. I didn't see you earlier, Evan. What up, brother? Yeah, man, you guys have been absolutely awesome. I always appreciate it. You guys popping in, hanging out with us next week, next Thursday, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Phable is going to be joining me with his co-host from said Instagram channel to talk about this film that I have no fucking clue if they're going to like it, love it, or fucking hate it and me for making them watch. The Invitation came out in 2015. I'll just say beforehand, Phable, and anybody else that wants to watch this thing, I recommend you do. I'll just say, like, I wouldn't. This is a movie like I definitely enjoy, but I am fucking really curious if everyone else is gonna hate it. This is one of those. Just a warning going in, Phable. Slow burn. Just fucking wait. Just a warning. It's a patience movie. It's an atmosphere, and it's a subtext film. That it's for me. I like it's one that after I watched it the first time, like it kept popping back in my brain. 3 days later, I'm still thinking about The Invitation. You seen that one?
I've seen it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm curious what you think too. Fuck. Well, you're invited. If we can make it a 4-man panel if you want, I'd be totally down with that. All right, awesome, dude. So I'm excited. Again, The Invitation. Go check it out. It's on fucking Shudder. It's on Amazon Prime. It's streaming like everywhere that I look for whatever reason. So go check it out. Join us next week. Again, go sub up to the Instagrams for Phable and for Mr. Lynk down there and everybody in the chat. Thank you. You guys in the rewind. Thank you. Hit the like button. Comment down below. I'd love to hear what you guys think. We'll see you next time.